Macias tries a cross-floor pass, picks out Chiva Ramirez. This ball skitters off the boards. It's a foot race. Cox, Valdivinos, who slides in. Cox rounds him. Ball loose in front of goal, and Cox scores!
And we talked about that danger of having that keeper all the way back, and Valdivinos just not even close to a match to the pace of Cox, who does a great job.
I mean, Jim, these two games are about as good an advertisement for the Major Arena Soccer League as you can hope for.
What's going on, everybody? This is MASL Monday. I'm Alex Bastiavansky, bringing you all the best from the Major Arena Soccer League. Welcome to everyone listening on Sirius XM FC channel 157 and watching us on MASL TV. And so happy to be joined today by the broadcaster extraordinaire for the Tacoma Stars, Andrew Harvey. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Alex. Great to be back on with you, and you know, pretty happy after a good weekend for the Stars.
Big weekend for the Tacoma Stars. We got to get into it because you played Chihuahua, one of the powers in the MASL this season, the boys from Mexico, and the Stars acquitted themselves very well over two games. The first one, overtime loss on the Friday night, 6-5. But the second one's the one we really want to get to for you guys, of course, because 4-2, doubling up one of the powerhouses of the MAS. I'll just take us through the weekend and the way things went for the Stars.
Sure. Well, you know, right, kind of coming in, the Stars had been, you know, struggling a little bit in recent games to convert on chances. And there sort of was a question of, man, maybe we could get 6 against Chihuahua here. That'd be huge because this is the end of a long homestand for Tacoma. And they were actually up by 2 goals in the fourth quarter of that game. But credit to Chihuahua, right? There's a reason that they're chasing down the San Diego Sockers there in the Western standings. Managed to pull level, and then Hugo Puentes was just a great overtime winner in that first game. So Stars settled for a point in the overtime loss. I know there was frustration there, but they bounced right back. They came out on Sunday night, and they just really kind of put the screws to them. It was a great defensive game. I know a lot of MASL fans kind of love, right, those 10-8 games that finish and there's a goal every 5 minutes. Just 6 goals in this one, but they were all really great strikes. And Tacoma did what they had to do. Kind of, it was amazing. They've wound up in the same situation where they were up by a goal with just a couple minutes left. And whereas on Friday, Chihuahua was able to pull level and force OT, Tacoma kind of learned from their mistakes, figured out what they had to do, shut them down, and then just a really great kind of open goal opportunity on a long ball. Chiva Ramirez skips it up the boards, and Jameel Cox gets into a foot race with Berna Valdivinos, who's so fleet of foot. He does play as Chihuahua's 6th attacker normally. Right. Beats him and then just has a little tap in. The place erupted. Both games were just a perfect encapsulation of what the MASL is all about in my mind.
It was amazing. It was fantastic to watch, and of course, you guys currently sit 6th in the West. You got to get to that all-important 5th position to get the play down with the 4th place team for the postseason. So it obviously means a lot to you guys. You're now just 1 point behind 5th place Monterey out West with the game in hand. But it's got to be pointed out, of course, Chihuahua 2nd in the West at the moment. They had everything to play for in this game. If they would have won the game, they would have drawn level with the Sockers in 1st place. So they weren't taking the foot off the gas by any means. So really the boys, when the chips were down, they came out and they came up with the massive result.
Yeah, no, it was a great battle. You know, both teams just kind of pinned their ears back and went for it. And I will also say, beyond the soccer, credit to the Chihuahua Savage. I know some other teams around the league do this, but the Stars have their players stay on the field after every game to sign autographs and greet fans, which is a great celebration of community. Chihuahua stayed out for both games, the one that they won and the one that they lost. And they, you know, signed autographs with the kids. And you know, it just was a great moment to kind of see everyone getting along after.
Very cool. And that's how you grow the sport. I mean, great fan interaction like that. Let's talk about the Stars this year. As I mentioned, 6th in extremely difficult Western Conference. Just take us through the way they've played so far, because it's been up and down. You guys actually got off to a pretty good start and then a bit of a lull. I think have opened up some eyes again, of course, with those strong performances against Chihuahua this past weekend. But take us through the performance of the Stars this season and what you've seen.
Well, I think the big thing, and honestly, I was talking to Nick Pereira about this, which is, in years past, the Stars have been very Pereira dependent. If Nick Pereira has a good game, things go real well. If Nick Pereira doesn't have a good game, it's rare, but it happens even to a former MVP. Then their fortunes can kind of fade a little bit. And the club is really trying to get to a place where they can have more contributors, have other guys step in and kind of carry the load. And there's just kind of been a transition this year to try to get to that point. Felipe Souza has been playing out of his mind. He's a great offensive talent. He and Pereira, I swear they have earpieces in for how they can find each other out there in space. Yeah. But this weekend against Chihuahua in particular, what stood out about Souza was his defensive play, just getting stuck in everywhere. Then you've got guys like Alex Caceres, who's a known contributor, but Logan Jones has taken a big step forward. And so I think this year, kind of the ups and downs right now have just been kind of about finding their identity in a world where Nick Pereira obviously still features centrally, but maybe not is the star of the show.
Well, that's to follow up to that, though. How do you feel that has gone so far? Because looking at the Tacoma scoring leaders, Pereira is far and away the leader with 27 points. Jameel Cox is second with 15, and then it goes 12-10. So there's still a pretty big gap between Nick. Now, of course, that being said, Nick Pereira is Nick Pereira.
Right.
He's a god in the world of indoor soccer. He's one of the best who have ever played the game. But is that a point? I mean, that's a 12-point spread between the top scorer and the second place guy on the team. Is that something that you think they look at and they're still, are they satisfied with that? Or is that something that sort of you think there's still a lot of work to be done there in that regard?
I think they're pressing forward. They're kind of battling the twin objectives here of, right, they'd love to be less reliant on Nick Pereira, but they also still want to win, some indoor soccer games and go to the playoffs. So, like you said, Pereira is still just a force in this league. He had an amazing goal on an awkward back pass in the first game on Friday, where basically the ball just kind of skipped up off the boards. Valdivinos went for it. Pereira stuck his leg up above Valdivinos' hands, brought it down, and finished it past him on 2 touches. So, when a guy can do stuff like that, you're still going to let him go out there and do his thing. So I think the Stars right now, they're probably a little bit frustrated. They had a couple chances go begging, even in those 2 games on Friday and Sunday. Yeah. But despite that, things are starting to click a little bit more. It feels like the group's pulling together. And they're going to need to, because they're on the road for their next 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to point out, on a personal note, last night you had a chance to call the game against Chihuahua with your old man. Yeah. Your father, Jim, who himself was a former player, NCAA player. And you guys got to call. So it was your first Tacoma Stars game that you've called outdoor games before. But this was your first indoor game. What was it like getting to call the game with your dad?
It's a blast. I think a lot of us tuning in and listening, whether you work in sports or just love them, right? It was something you shared with your parents growing up. Soccer was very much a thing that he and I shared together with my 2 older sisters who also played. And so the fact that for a decade now, he and I have been able to kind of step into the booth together and share these experiences together as a play-by-play and analyst system. I will admit, 10 years ago, it was difficult calling him Jim and not Dad on the air, but we've gotten past that. But no, to be able to come show him, the indoor game, which I love dearly, this is a fantastic sport, Alex. Mm-hmm. It's a really special thing. And I think everyone who comes to a game gets hooked. And he was aware of arena soccer, but just being in there and getting to see a game that good and that hard fought.
He was an instant convert.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How can you not be, right? I always say, you watch the MASL once, you get addicted for life. So I'm talking with Andrew Harvey, the play-by-play man for the Tacoma Stars. You are listening to MASL Monday on Sirius XM FC channel 157 and watching on MASL TV. And just a reminder to everyone that to catch the great Tacoma game against Chihuahua last night, and on Friday, the overtime one, and all the MASL games from the past weekend. Or if you want to watch live as well, games going on, be sure to tune in to the MASL on Twitch for all the games. Let's move on to San Diego, of course, the reigning 2-time champion, 16 times overall for the organization, who are suddenly, I don't know if we're going to say looking vulnerable a little bit, as vulnerable as a team like San Diego can look, that were absolutely invincible for the longest time. They looked like no one was going to take them down. They've now lost 2 of 4. So Thursday they played the Sidekicks, a game that everyone expected San Diego to win. Dallas hung in there. Though, for it. They lost 7-4, but I think they accounted themselves pretty well. And Blas Perez, former Panamanian international, 5 goals in 2 games now for the Sidekicks. So positives to take away for Dallas anyway.
I think so. I think Dallas, right, still looking for that first win of the year. There actually has been one team, I'm pretty sure, in MASL history that went winless on a whole season. I don't think Dallas is going to be that. Now I'm going to have to rack my brain to try to remember who it was. I'll get back to you, Alex. But
see if producer Phil can put it into the comments here in a second while we research it. But yeah,
but right, Dallas is a good team, and right, I think there's still also this problem of just when you're in the West and you're playing all your games against Mesquite and Chihuahua and Monterey, who right are still really good. There can be a lot of cannibalization that goes on for San Diego, right? Interesting now that they're 500 over their last 4 games, but you and I know, Alex, this is a very tough league, and on a given day, anybody can beat anybody. And I do think it is kind of interesting that, right, San Diego, after winning 30 regular season games in a row, they lose 2, and apparently the league has this predator moment of, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
It's funny talking about, though, it doesn't matter what sport you're in. I remember like a junior hockey coach that I talked to for another show that I've done over the years, and his team went on a 6-game losing skid during the season. They ended up winning the entire thing in the playoffs, but when I interviewed him during the regular season, I said, what do you think? And he's like, listen, he's like, totally fine. Would rather get this out of the way now. In the regular season, while there's still time left, you got to get it out, because for San Diego, that 30-game win streak, that's a lot of pressure too. It's a pressure to keep the streak going. I don't know if you'd want to go in the playoffs riding that streak. I think it's almost good that they're getting this stuff out of the way, an imperfect couple of games where they've now lost. But I'm going off on a tangent here. But anyway, I think for them, it's almost a good thing just to get this stuff out of the way after being almost perfect for so long.
Yeah, I think, right, we're in that phase of the season now where, to your point, Alice, if you're going to stumble a little bit, now's the time to do it, because there's still enough time to course correct. For San Diego, maybe get on another streak, lock up that #1 spot in the West. For a bubble team like Tacoma, right, you get a couple games on the bounce here. You can do yourself a lot of good if someone else has some struggle. But you really want those last 4 or 5 games before the end of the season to be the form you're going to be hitting going into the playoffs.
Okay, this is why producer Phil is the #1 producer in the world of sports. He just put into the comments here, El Paso went 0-19-1 in the 2016-17 season. So, Andrew, you were right. And Phil was able to use his keyboard and find out which team exactly it was that went winless. So, awesome. MASL statistician Phil Levanco. Also the host, by the way, of MASL Under Review. There'll be lots of juicy stuff to look at again this week, so tune in for that, everybody. Of course, it should be mentioned, we're talking about the fact they've lost 2 of 4. Well, we were talking about the Dallas game, which they won. The loss we're talking about was on Saturday in Mesquite against the uber tough Outlaws, who have as good a shot as anyone of winning it this season, the entire thing. But Mesquite takes it 6-5. Sebastian Mendez, first star of the game, 2 goals. The guy's been a beast this season, 4th overall in MASL point scoring. It should be mentioned as well, Luis Morales not there. Him and Mendez are the 2 main guys for the Outlaws, and Morales now hasn't played since January 29th. We don't know exactly why that is. We assume it might be an injury, hopefully nothing too serious. If that's what it is, if people pipe in the comments down below, But regardless, just give us your take on that, because that is a massive win for Mesquite.
It's a huge win for Mesquite, and it's kind of one of those signature performances. It usually winds up being a signature performance if you get a regular season win over San Diego, because they don't happen very often. But the fact that Morales hasn't been in there, I think Mesquite, if he's in the squad and integrated, is in a false position right now where they are on the table. Because if you look at his production, he scored 17 goals and 6 assists in the 11 games he's played so far. So if you put his production back in, right, I think they're probably going to win that game against Chihuahua. And honestly, that road loss against San Diego, maybe that does turn in. So you tack in 6 more points, and we're talking about a different team at the top of the Western Conference standings right now. So, this Western Conference on a given day, if you've got all your guys, some real chaos ball goes on out here.
This is the craziest season that I have seen in years.
I agree.
From a perspective of the East, not one team really separating itself, although we'll get to that momentarily, with Milwaukee dropping a game this past weekend as well. But the West being as strong as it has been, you guys are doing your best to catch Monterey, and Monterey is a team that I feel it cannot be counted out. If by chance Monterey makes it into the postseason and not you guys, Monterey would be a team that nobody would want to play either. But I mean, you might take that away from them anyway, the way things are going at this point, the Tacoma Stars. But I, of course, am sitting here talking with Andrew Harvey, the play-by-play man for the Tacoma Stars on MASL Monday. Let's move out east now. And there were a couple of big trades that went down last week, which we're going to talk about as they pertain to the players and their new teams. Let's first talk about St. Louis and Milwaukee on Friday. Heck of a game, 6-5. The Wave take it. The Wave now have 4-point bulge over second place Florida. But your thoughts on the game? Ian Bennett, by the way, extending his point streak to 46 games now as well in that game.
Did you know he scored 187 goals after turning age 35 and counting? And he's aging like a fine wine out there. I'm scared that Ian Bennett is going to be just knocking in goals 20 years from now. The Milwaukee team, they're really fun to watch, right? It's a good team. Bennett, obviously star of the show, but they're getting to that part of the season, like we talked about earlier, where you just got to be taking care of business against the guys that you need to. St. Louis is one of those teams for Milwaukee. And, right, a little bit of a stumble later as we'll get to, but they're doing what they need to right now to get by.
So you mentioned the stumble, and that happened on Sunday. And this is one thing why it's tough to get a read on Milwaukee sometimes, because they'll go into KC and get bombed 10-4 after winning, the day previous. They will have a good win over St. Louis and then go into Utica and get dropped by City 7-5. Now, that is a very, very hungry Utica team that's fighting for their postseason lives, no question about it. But let's talk about, of course, the new addition to Utica City for that game, making his debut, Taylor Walter Bond, big addition for the Blues. And first, talk about that acquisition by Utica, bringing in Taylor Walter Bond, and what you think about that.
I think it's a good move for Utica. I think, right, this league, it's so difficult to go out there and find proven guys. And even when a guy is a proven contributor and someone can come in and get a job done, there's always that question of, well, how's he going to integrate, right? Because so much of this game in particular is what's the chemistry like to find those guys. Outdoor game, there's a lot of space out there that can cover up for a lot of stuff. In the indoor game, you've got to know not just when he's going to play it off the boards or play through, but what part of the boards he's going to play it off of, how hard. There's just a lot to get used to. So, it's a big, ambitious acquisition, and it's the acquisition in my mind of a team that says, yeah, we're going for it. We are going to lock up this playoff spot, and we're going to make some noise.
Yeah, Andrew Coughlin, 11 saves in the game, continuing in his excellent season so far. Just a great win for Utica, who of course is trying to get into that 4 or 5 spot to make the play-in game. And the Tropics taking on the KC Comets. This is the other part. So Utica, Utica ends up trading away Joey Tavernese to the Florida Tropics, and of course Taylor Walter Bond will be, filling a spot there in Utica. But Joey Tavernese to the Tropics, that is a big one for Florida, who needed a shot in the arm, of course, after trading away Zach Reggett and Taylor Walter Bond a couple of weeks ago. So break this down for me, your perspective on them acquiring Tavernese.
Tavernese, he is a guy who knows how to get it done, right? Just 10 goals and 13 with his time in Utica so far this season. But, he knows that Eastern Conference. He scored 19 last year. Sorry about that. And just, again, proven contributor. Florida, like you said, they needed some more scoring power in there. And it's just a matter of bringing a guy in, getting him acclimated. It's very rare for a star player to come in and score 2, 3, 4 goals. Of course, actually, Reggett did that not too long ago in Kansas City, didn't he? But, it's a good move by Florida. And right there, in my mind right now, it's a 1-2 race, them and Milwaukee, to see who's going to finish top of the East. I think Tavernese can help them do that.
They really needed a response after getting smoked by Florida the week before, and Zach Reggett, of course, going all world on them with 5 goals in that game against his former team. This time, they held Reggett to a single assist, which has got to feel good for the Tropics in that one. We'll quickly just do Baltimore, Harrisburg 7-1 for the Blast over the Heat, which is not expected, especially on their home floor where they're just, so tough to take down, aren't they, the Blast? And Lucas Roque continuing his MVP form with 2 goals and 2 assists. And Vanzela, 21 saves. Interesting to point out that you mentioned before the show, of course, though, Harrisburg actually outshooting Baltimore in the game.
Yeah, 29-20. So, almost a 50% over on that one. It's a great sport, Alex, because you never know when someone's going to show up and hit a level that you're not expecting from them. Harrisburg, right? Not where they want to be in the standings right now, but again, you never know what's going to happen when you show up to an MASL arena.
Is there to you, before we're going to get into rankings, power rankings in a moment, but when you look at the East, is there a team that to you has separated itself from the rest?
I don't think there's a team that's separated itself just yet. I think there are 2 teams that are in the process of doing that in Milwaukee and Florida. But, at the same time, Baltimore just won their 4th in a row. So, maybe we're trending towards there being a big 3 or a bigger 3 in the East. I think those teams are just trying to figure out who's going to be the guy right now. And it's just a little bit chaotic at the moment.
Well, that leads us into our power rankings. Now, these are from Andrew himself. Now, last week we had a blast doing it with Jonathan Reimer of the Empire Strikers. And I'll tell you what, folks, if you were up in arms about Jonathan's, if you thought those were controversial, wait till we get to these ones because it's going to blow your socks off. It's a lot of fun, though. So let's start. Let's start with number 1 then. Or what do you want to do? You want top or bottom? What do you want to do?
Let's work our way up if it's all right with you.
Let's work our way up. Sure. Let's start with your number 14. Just take us down. Dallas Sidekicks. Go ahead.
Yeah. Right. Dallas Sidekicks still looking for that first win. Still looking to get off the power rankings floor. Looking better, I think, in recent fixtures, but need more from Blas Perez, need more from Roman Torres. Just need a little bit more.
Yep. Okay. And then you got Harrisburg at 13.
Yep. Again, lost 7-1 on the weekend, but did outshoot Baltimore. They just got to put in a little more work and try to get something going out there in the East.
Ambush at 12. Ambush are tough because, you get the feeling on day-to-day they can beat anyone. But, now they're on the outside looking in on the playoff picture.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, the fact that they're on the wrong side of the playoff line right now has me feeling a little more pessimistic about them. I will say my power rankings, they're often kind of who's hot, who's not, sort of a momentum-based thing, which is why we deviate pretty hard from the actual standings, as we'll find out as we move up this list.
Well, you've got the Monterey Flash at number 11, which is definitely going to get tongues wagging. So tell us about that.
Right, Monterey, they're on a 3-game skid right now, and just admittedly, it's an Empire they dropped to. It just feels like now's the wrong time for a team to be cooling off. I will say maybe there's an aspect of the fact that they're right above Tacoma in the playoff that has them down in this position, but for some reason, I'm feeling slightly more pessimistic about their chances right now.
Just a reminder to everyone that if you agree or disagree on Andrew's choices, put your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm sure people will have some stuff to say about these. I'm loving it. Number 10, you've got UCFC.
Yep. And honestly, this 10 spot, I think, was the toughest one for me to try to pick a team. Utica's in a playoff spot. They won 2 in a row right now, but they just, again, right, maybe Taylor Walter Bond's going to be the glue they need to kind of coagulate. It's just been too inconsistent for me from them.
Okay, and you've got your Stars at number 9, Tacoma.
I do. Yep. I've got them kind of moving up right now. A 4-point week at home against the Chihuahua Savage. That's a good outing. And they were a couple minutes away from it being a 6-point week. So I put them in the number 9 spot.
All right. KC Comets at number 8.
They're looking good. They're in a playoff spot right now. But that loss to Florida puts Utica 7 points back of them with 2 games in hand. So I think we might see the race tightening a little bit over there in the East.
All right. The Tropics at number 7.
Yeah. Of all the teams in these middle positions, I think Florida has the potential to move up quickest. 1, they picked up Tavernese. And 2, right, they're a team that when they're on, you don't really want to play against them. I remember, them last year, and they had some insane results, just beating up on folks. So I think they could swing a lot in either direction, depending on how their next few games go.
All right, Mesquite at number 6.
That win against San Diego has me very confident that they've kind of secured their playoff spot. Yeah.
Okay. The Savage at number 5. Here we start getting really interesting here. Okay.
Yep.
So Chihuahua at number 5. Tell us about that.
I think for Chihuahua, it's kind of a lost opportunity this weekend against Tacoma. They had a big chance if they picked up 6 points this weekend to kind of chase down San Diego at the top of the Western spot, and they couldn't quite get it done. They faltered, and they struggled, admittedly, against a Tacoma team that I think is very good. But really, on paper, at least, they should have had a stronger result.
Okay, here's where the pitchforks really come out. Baltimore at number 4. Take us through this.
Listen, they've won their last 4 straight. In those games, they've had an average margin of victory of 7.25 goals. If you're scoring a bunch of goals and winning a bunch, this is the time of year that you can kind of surprise some people. And with so much uncertainty in the East, I think there might be an opportunity for Baltimore to make some noise.
And, of course, that home floor is so tough to beat them on. Number 3, Milwaukee.
Yeah, this Milwaukee team is going to be really fun to watch over the next couple of weeks, right? They've got KC twice, Florida, and St. Louis in their next 4 games. It's crunch time, but I think if they can kind of get things going and Ian Bennett keeps doing what Ian Bennett has been doing for about half a decade at this point, they could lock up that top spot in the East. Okay,
so you've got San Diego at number 2.
It's a close loss for San Diego this weekend, but they are still the San Diego Sockers, right? They've lost 2 in their last 4, but they've won 16 Ron Newman Cups. So, I think there is some wiggle room for San Diego right now.
Okay, and number 1, you have got. You know what? I like this. I like that you've put them. You got Empire at number 1. They are one of the hottest teams in the league right now. They are absolutely terrifying to watch right now with their offensive firepower, and you've got them at number 1.
I think they are, in my mind, they might be one of the most complete teams in this league. And certainly in my mind, they're the team that nobody wants to play right now. Frank Tayu is on another level, right? Top of the points leaderboard, top of the goals leaderboard. He's a monster. They've got great defenders in Uzi Tayu and Cisse. I just think there's something about Empire that can cause a lot of problems. So they get my number 1 spot.
You're making the doctor and Philly Philemon very happy there in Empire when they hear this. Okay, shout out to the boys there with the Strikers. And we're going to really quickly, we've got about like 2 minutes here. So let's just quickly do goal and moment of the week. What's your goal of the week?
Yeah, it's got to be Hugo Puentes' overtime winner. If you go back and watch it, beautiful turn, finish, top right corner. Waltman was never going to get to it. That's how you put a game away early in overtime.
Okay, I'm going to just being different here. Utica's passing play to go up 7-5 against Milwaukee was an absolute thing of beauty, and it's something you don't often see in the arena game. 7 consecutive touches starting from their back off a restart. Andrew Coughlin getting it started. 7 consecutive touches, finishing off with Dylan Hundelt out front. Finishing off the pass. Absolutely beautiful goal. No boards, no glass, all within the frame of the field. Just a beautiful, beautiful play by Utica, and I'm going to have that as my goal of the week. And what's your moment?
My moment is actually after the Chihuahua Tacoma match on Sunday. The teams got together, had a great moment of just brotherhood and friendship around this sport that we all get to love and share. Great to see after 2 really close and hard-fought games on the weekend.
Do love to see that. And you know what? I'll just do mine is I'm going to pick Tacoma taking down Chihuahua. Pretty basic stuff, but to me, Chihuahua had something huge to play for, which is to tie the Sockers at the top. And you guys, after a tight overtime loss, obviously heartbreaking on the Friday, come out and really open a lot of eyes throughout the league, taking down Chihuahua, who is second place, I believe, right now in the league, if I'm checking. So in out west anyway. So that's my moment. But yeah, listen, we got to run, brother. But thank you so much. Always love doing this with you, having you on the show. Last year it was MASL Primetime. This year it's MASL Monday. You do a great job. Say hi to your dad. Let him know he did a great job. And thank you, buddy, for being on the show today.
Alex, thanks so much. MASL Monday, it's the best way to start your week.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'll take that plug. Why not? And just a reminder to everyone, you can listen to us on Sirius XM FC Channel 157 every Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time. You can watch all MASL games live or archived on Twitch, and of course, all your highlights and great shows like MASL Under Review, all on MASL TV on YouTube. Thank you so much, part of it. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll do it again next week. Until then, take care.